Hi, Dr. Brian Kaufman, a retired family doctor and CLL patient myself, Chief Medical Officer, Executive Vice President, and co-founder of the nonprofit CLL Society. Con?
Hi, I'm Con Tam. I'm professor of hematology at Monash University and head of the CLL and lymphoma service at the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne, Australia.
Well, it's the evening here in California, and it's the morning, I think, still in Australia, but the next day. But you were involved in some research that was presented at the American Society of Hematology's annual meeting in 2024 that addresses an issue that's becoming more and more important in CLL. The BTK inhibitors, that the first generation of those that bind covalently to BTK, ibrutinib, acalabrutinib, and zanubrutinib, have revolutionized the care and give patients like myself and many others much longer lives. But eventually, most of us become resistant. So there's been a search on and some significant success in other ways to block BTK, so it's such a successful pathway to block. And there's new drugs, but you've been involved with a drug that's very early in development that may overcome the resistance to BTK in a very effective way. So tell us a little bit about this research, this drug, and what we should be watching for.
Oh, absolutely. So the drug that I'm working with is a drug called DZD8586. Now, to take a step back, as you mentioned that patients tend to respond very well to the covalent BTK inhibitors, that is ibrutinib, acalabrutinib, or zanubrutinib. But over time, what happens is they develop a mutation where all three of the drugs bind. So it's at a point on the BTK protein called cysteine 481. And when you have a mutation at that site, the drugs no longer bind to it. And that's where a drug that some of your listeners may have heard of called pirtobrutinib is important, because pirtobrutinib does not rely on cysteine 481 for binding, and pirtobrutinib is effective when patients have a mutational resistance to the first and second generation BTK inhibitors. The problem with pirtobrutinib with time is that they started to get mutations in a whole range of other sites, okay? So the cancer keeps on escaping from the drug binding. And what we're looking for are new ways to overcome the cancer where the BTK protein are now developing mutations in multiple sites that escape the traditional drugs. And DZD8586 is actually a reversible BTK inhibitor, so the same class as pirtobrutinib, and does not rely on cysteine 481 for binding. But unlike pirtobrutinib, it has a key advantage in that it also overcomes most of the other resistant mutations. So whereas pirto can overcome cysteine 481, but is susceptible to a whole range of other mutations, this drug is
Are these like the gatekeeper mutations and things like that that I hear about, and
correct.
kinase dead mutations and things like that? Yeah.
Correct. So these drugs are a much broader mutational coverage. So we're hoping that this can be used for patients who carry mutations, and B, hopefully even prevent the emergence of these mutations altogether. So this is a very early phase 1 study we presented at ASH this year. Is in patients who have had a number of different B-cell cancers. The long and the short of it is that the drug is safe, the drug works like you expect for BTK inhibitor. And I think moving forward, what we need to see is, how does this drug perform in patients who have mutations as we enroll more and more of those patients. So I think it's a very exciting area. And having worked in the BTK field for over 10 years now, it's a very interesting story. We get a good drug, the cancer escapes from us. We develop another drug, the cancer escapes from us again. So it's a real cat and mouse game.
Well, I'm very excited about this, and I know the data is very early, but it did look promising across a number of B-cell lymphomas, and it did look like the drug was pretty well tolerated, and the response rate seemed to get better as you up the dose going from it. So are new trials being developed, and do you know where those trials will be, what countries they'll be in?
So the trials are predominantly in China and Australia. I'm not aware of it, whether there might be any US sites. But we're going to wrap up the phase 1 by enrolling more patients with CLL and especially resistant CLL to get more data. And hopefully once that if it looks good, then we can expand to phase 2 and phase 3 studies, including US sites.
Dr. Tam, you've always been on the cutting edge of research and in drug development, and the CLL community is in debt to you for all your research. Thank you so much.
Thank you.